watchers of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South. I am Doris Polo. We begin in El Salvador, where President Nayib Bukele sent soldiers into parliament on Sunday as he demands that lawmakers approve a loan to boost security. Despite the military presence, only 28 members of the parliament turned up to Sunday's extraordinary session, meaning it was again without a quorum to vote on the $109 million loan. Members from the left-wing FMLN and the right-wing Arena parties refused to attend. Bukele said he would give the parliament one more week to pass the legislation.
If these scoundrels don't approve this week the territorial control plan, then we will return here on Sunday. We ask God again for wisdom, and we say, God, you asked me for patience, but these scoundrels don't want to work for the people.
And the left-wing FMLN political party says the government sent security forces to the homes of its lawmakers and those of Arena to threaten them and to try to force them to attend the session of Parliament.
If, by making illegal use of state institutions, our people continue to be persecuted, our lawmakers and their families simply, we are making you responsible for this. You can't play with this. If you think confrontation and could be safe, we only bring collateral damage to one side. You are wrong. You are wrong.
Our correspondent Ernesto Abalos has more from San Salvador.
Sunday was a very intense day here in El Salvador. The FMLN was holding its national convention in the morning, where the Secretary General, Oscar Ortiz, made it clear that the FMLN rejected the call by President Nayib Bukele for an extraordinary session of Parliament to approve the $109 million loan for his security plan. He said he gave full support to the party's lawmakers not to attend, since the Legislative Assembly was holding regular sessions where this plan could perfectly well be discussed. The extraordinary session was called for 3 p.m. on Sunday. The President arrived an hour later and spoke to his supporters outside the Assembly. There he used strong words to accuse the FMLN and Arena lawmakers of being linked to gangs known as pandillas, and claimed that these gangs may have received money from these parties during elections. After speaking for half an hour, the President went into the Legislative Assembly and made a prayer to God, where he said he had asked for patience and more patience to avoid getting into a conflict between the legislature and the executive. He said he would give the members of the Parliament another week to approve this loan, and he said if they didn't do that, next Sunday he would return to the Assembly. He also called on the population to punish these lawmakers of El Salvador's two traditional parties in next year's legislative elections and remove them from office.
Thank you, Ernesto Avalos, our correspondent from San Salvador, with that report. A revolution in the ballot box. That is how the leader of Sinn Féin described the unprecedented success of her nationalist party in Saturday's general election. The first results on Sunday night gave Sinn Féin the largest number of first preference votes with 24.5%. For the first time, they beat the two traditional parties that have alternated in power for decades. Fianna Fáil had 22% and the governing Fine Gael had 21%. Ireland's single transferable voting system means Fianna Fáil is still predicted to win the most number of seats in Parliament, and difficult coalition talks are expected.
This is not a protest vote. This is certainly an election that is historic in proportions. This is changing the shape and the mould of Irish politics. This is not a transient thing. This is just the beginning. the best outcome is a government without Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. So that's the first thing that I want to test, whether or not that is possible. I also have consistently said that I will talk to and listen to everybody. I think that's what grown-ups do. I think that's what democracy demands.
Thousands gathered in the municipal stadium of Sacaba in Bolivia's Chapare region for the official launch of the presidential campaign of the Movement Towards Socialism Party. Youth unions, along with campesino and indigenous movements of this region, joined the presidential ticket of Luis Arce and David Choquehuanca for the festive event. Throughout the weekend, citizens have also been calling for an end to political persecution of mass leaders by the de facto authorities. During the rally, the candidates called on all Bolivians to participate in the May 3rd general elections, which will come a mere 6 months after the military-backed coup that ousted President Evo Morales.
It has been more than 500 years of lies, and we have decided to return to the truth. Our political instrument will bring us back to the path of the truth.
Our correspondent in Sacaba, Camila Escalante, has more.
Thousands are gathered here today at the Municipal Stadium of Sacaba to launch the Luis Arce David Choquehuanca ticket for the presidency, for the movement towards socialism, and the rest of the mass candidates. This is a huge shock for the movement. The stadium is absolutely packed, and there were thousands of people from social movements waiting to get in. The event is just about wrapping up, but today's program began with a moment of silence for the martyrs, as they're referred to, who were killed in the November 15th Sacaba massacre. They were killed in a police and military operation not far from here. They're remembered for having given their lives in the struggle to return democracy and Bolivia's process of change, which was interrupted by the coup. It's clear that the bases here have come together to rally around the Arce Choquehuanca duo, despite rumors of tension within the ranks of the movement. People here say that they're going to be mobilizing support for the next 3 months to make sure that the right-wing parties and alliances don't get into office, despite fears that the election is already being organized under climate political persecution against leaders of the mass. Festive day with candidates dancing and performances on stage, and we were able to hear from President Evo Morales as well as the candidates. President Evo Morales and the candidates made sure to urge the people not to react to provocation by the right wing with violence. That's all from the Municipal Stadium of Sacaba.
Our correspondent Camila Escalante in Bolivia's Sacaba region, where the Mass Party launched its election campaign. Now, speaking of elections, 2020 is the year for elections in the Dominican Republic, beginning with local elections next weekend. Now, these will be an indicator ahead of the presidential election in May.
Just a week to go, and the Dominican Republic is getting ready for its municipal elections.
There is no more important day than Election Day, because people know that is when all citizens are equal, and that sense of equality needs to be protected.
More than 64,000 electoral military police will be on duty. The Electoral Board is getting the voting centers and the ballots ready for the local elections of the 16th of February. So what is the political outlook?
These municipal elections are complicated because in the capital the race is very close. The two main parties, the PLD and the PRM, are neck and neck in the polls for mayor. In the case of Santiago, which is a very important province, the PLD candidate, Abel Martinez, does have a clear lead.
Automated voting will take place alongside manual votes. 18 municipalities with their 58 districts will use the automatic system, while the other 140 municipalities with 178 districts will be manual.
The Dominican Republic is one of the few countries in Latin America where there has been no rupture in political class. The traditional party system remains intact, even though it's discredited and has lost people's trust.
Mayors and local councillors will be elected in 32 provinces, 158 municipalities and 235 districts. In all, 3,849 posts are up for elections by nearly 7.5 million voters at over 16,000 polling stations.
The people will vote for those who can give them something, not public service, not big ideas or a vision of society, but some direct help to help them survive, which is what people expect, and which is the legacy of this neoliberal system in which we are living in the Dominican Republic.
There has been a campaign against the selling of votes under the slogan, "If you sell your vote, we all lose." The results of these elections will be a test of what is to come in the presidential elections in May.
Well, we have more stories coming up, including reports of a massacre in the DRC. Don't go anywhere.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dot in the eye. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. This weekend, the city of Rio de Janeiro hosted a cultural festival to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Brazil's Workers' Party. Let's have a look.
With 1.5 million members, the Workers' Party is one of the largest political organizations in Latin America. In 2020, it celebrates 40 years of existence, and as part of the celebrations, the main progressive parties from Brazil came together in an event that could represent the formation of a historic front ahead of the upcoming regional elections.
A united front to defend democracy and the rights of the people. A front that can drive Brazil forward with the support of the people to defeat Bolsonaro's government.
If we can set aside our differences as left-wing parties and we can recognize that these times call for unity and political action, then we can decide on whether or not we can form alliances, but always prioritizing our common interests.
The Workers' Party is made up of millions of workers from across Brazil, of different genders, ethnicities, and social groups. Many of them took part in this festival, which also celebrated the recent liberation of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
During the time he was in prison, we were there in Curitiba to give ourselves to the fight, and today it couldn't be any different.
My children can go to school today thanks to Lula. If it weren't for him, we'd be in a very bad situation. He needs to be president again.
The euphoria rises as Lula arrives, accompanied by the former president of Uruguay, José Mujica. Their speech was aimed at the youth of Brazil, as, under Bolsonaro, the nation suffers from an unemployment rate of 12% and 41% of workers work in irregular conditions.
The world will become a better place if the youth shows compromise, if they can spend a part of their lives fighting for justice and equality.
For Lula, who left office in 2010 with an approval rating of 87% and recently served 580 days in prison due to political persecution, the message is clear.
If we lose interest, if we have fear, if we don't take the streets, if we don't raise our voices and we don't demand our rights, then we are lost.
The party that was in power for 4 consecutive terms is determined to fight against the far right, but it will also seek to regain the trust of many in order to lead a social reconstruction that goes beyond the ballot box.
On Saturday, the Vice President of Argentina, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, visited Cuba to take part in the 12th International Havana Book Fair. Now, during a conversation with the press after the presentation of her autobiography, Fernández spoke about the need for the International Monetary Fund to establish a significant reduction of the massive debt incurred by Argentina's previous administration.
The IMF should at least establish a substantial reduction of the debt, because a loan was made outside of the International Monetary Fund, compromising 60% of the lending capacity of the multilateral body. On the other hand, this loan was made in violation of the obligations of the International Monetary Fund itself. The first thing we have to do to be able to pay is to get out of the recession. If there's a recession, no one's going to pay half a cent to the IMF. And the only way to come out of our recession is with a big investment by the state.
In some very tragic news coming out of Africa, at least 8 people have been killed and 20 reportedly missing after a militia attack in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Some hundreds of families had to flee from their homes after a rebel group, the Allied Democratic Forces, attacked the area. The DRC Army has launched an operation to flash out the ADF militia, which has been blamed for killing more than 1,000 civilians in Benin since October of 2014. Local police are also still searching for those missing. Cameroonians have voted in general elections despite violent threats from separatist groups and calls for a boycott by the opposition. Security forces were deployed to protect voters in the southwest region, one of 2 provinces gripped by bloody separatist violence. But thankfully, no instances of violence have been reported. The Central African country's legislative and local council elections happened for the first time in 7 years after 2 previous delays. The results are expected to be announced in 20 days.
I'm satisfied to cast my vote, and I'm happy because at least there's security to protect each and every one of us who come here to vote.
I want to vote because you see, it is good to put someone on the seat, the person that you love with your heart, that this person can do something better.
African heads of states gathered in Ethiopia's capital Addis Ababa for a 2-day summit on peace building. The African Union Summit, named Silencing the Guns, seeks to find ways of resolving conflicts across the continent and to resolve the security situation in war-torn nations. The leaders are also set to review a goal adopted by the AU in 2013 of ending all wars in Africa by 2020. And they rejected the United States and Israel's so-called Middle East peace plan.
And I guess my first task to the US-inspired plan for the Palestinians, that as I listened to it and as I read everything that's written about it, it brought to mind a horrible history that we as South Africa have gone through.
The case of Palestine best illustrates the fragility of international commitments. The American-Israeli plan, described as the deal of the century, conceived and drawn without any international consultation, and worse still, in the absence of the main concerned parties, the Palestinians, is yet another violation of multiple United Nations and African Union resolutions, and further disregard for the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people.
We're taking one last break, after which you'll get an update on China's novel coronavirus. Stay with us.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The death toll from the novel coronavirus has risen to 908 in mainland China as millions of people start returning to work after an extended holiday designed to slow the spread of the virus. The National Health Commission said 97 people died on Sunday, making it the deadliest day since the outbreak started. The number of confirmed cases nationwide now stands at 40,171. The outbreak has turned most cities into ghost towns, with most people staying indoors. But on Monday, traffic returned to the roads as millions made their way to work.
Currently, there are 35,982 confirmed cases, among which 6,484 are severe cases. There are altogether 3,281 cured cases and 90 deaths. The cumulative number of confirmed cases is 40,171. There are now 23,589 suspect cases, and we have traced 399,487 close contacts.
On Sunday morning, sharpshooters in Thailand killed a gunman who opened fire at a mall in Nakhon Ratchasima, killing 29 people. The soldier behind the massacre was shot dead after a gunfight that lasted more than 17 hours. The gunman used a stolen machine gun and rifles from one of Thailand's largest barracks to carry out the attack. Citizens held a vigil on Sunday for the victims of the horrific massacre. Friends and relatives of those killed gathered in Nakhon Ratchasima, holding candles while monks chanted praise for the dead and injured.
I want to give condolences to the victims, even though they are not my family. I am saddened by what happened. Thailand has never seen anything like this. Everybody is in shock and asking how our safety in the future will be guaranteed, and how to prevent this kind of incident from happening again.
Hundreds of people gathered in India's capital to campaign for an end to gender-based violence. People from several gender justice organizations showed up in New Delhi as part of the 1 Billion Rising campaign to combat rape and sexual violence against women and girls. According to a 2018 study, India ranks as the most dangerous country for women due to the high risk of sexual violence and being forced into slave labor.
1 billion people, men, women and children who love and respect women, should rise and say, no more violence, enough is enough.
We all need to stand up because it could be anybody, it could be me next. We need to understand that. So things have changed, but I think a lot more needs to be done. So we have to keep the momentum on for this movement.
Israeli planes have carried out airstrikes on the besieged Gaza Strip, causing extensive damage, local media reported. The Israeli military claimed that the airstrikes were a response to a rocket that was allegedly fired at Israel from Gaza on Sunday. There are no reports of any casualties so far. The incident comes amid tensions in the region in the wake of U.S. President Donald Trump's presentation of the Mideast peace plan. Meanwhile, Israeli authorities on Saturday imposed a blockade on Palestinian agricultural exports. According to local media reports, Israel's security forces have set up checkpoints to stop trucks carrying Palestinian agricultural products from leaving the occupied West Bank through Jordan, the occupied West Bank's only direct export route to the outside world. With all borders controlled by Israel, the Palestinian economy is highly vulnerable to Israeli sanctions. Moving on, thousands of Moroccans have also taken to the streets in the capital to protest against Trump's deal of the century, calling it a theft of the century. Carrying Palestinian flags, the demonstrators, including local politicians and trade unionists, marched in Rabat, chanting, "Long live Palestine." People also called for a boycott of U.S. products, denounced the Trump administration as enemies of peace, and chanted, "Palestine is not for sale." Trump's plan has also been rejected by the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, two organizations in which Morocco is a prominent member.
Today, we shouldn't be talking about the deal of the century, but rather the theft of the century is the hot dog of the century.
We are taking part today in this march in Rabat to support the Palestinian situation and to say no as Moroccans, Arabs and Muslims No to the agreement of the century, which does not represent either the free Moroccans, Arabs, or Muslims. We're also here to say, like most of the participants here, that the Palestinian situation is everyone's business.
Reports are stating that Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, the leader of Germany's right-wing Christian Democratic Union, will no longer bid to replace Angela Merkel as Chancellor. Kramp-Karrenbauer took over as CDU chairwoman in December 2018 and was tipped to take over as Chancellor in 2021. Now, this comes 2 days after Merkel fired Government Commissioner Christian Hirsch for congratulating a state governor elected with the help of the far-right Alternative for Germany party. It is considered a taboo for mainstream parties to collaborate with the AfD. The South Korean film Parasite has made history by becoming the first non-English film to win an Oscar for Best Picture at the 92nd Academy Awards. Directed by Bong Joon-ho, Parasite tackles classism and beat heavy competition, including the war epic 1917, to take home its 4th statuette of the night. The film also won the awards for Best Director, Best International Feature, and Best Original Screenplay, becoming the big winner on Hollywood's biggest night. Parasite had a total of 6 Academy Awards nominations.
Happening right now.
And that brings us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Bolo. Thank you for watching.